this week's show, we talk about World Challenge and the season finale in Sonoma, California. We then talk about September being the Club Racing Championship season with the SCCA NASA Championships. And we finish the show up with a conversation about the Baltimore Grand Prix and the up-and-coming B-Spec Test. Welcome to the Insider Report. Welcome to another episode of the Insiders Report. I'm your host, Errol Tucker, and joining me down in sunny Cocoa Beach, Florida, is Peter Keene.
Not so sunny today, Tucker.
That's Hurricane
so
Isaac,
sunny?
yeah.
And in Germantown, Tennessee, Jim Daniels. How you doing, gentlemen?
Great.
Wonderful.
So the hurricane missed you down there, huh, Peter?
Lots of rain.
Lots of rain. Well, that's good. You're fortunate.
That's it.
There you go. All right, guys. So this past weekend, World Challenge out there in California, had a lot of interesting stuff that go on. You know, we have some new champions to announce, and I guess one of the top ones that are kind of close to at least Jim and I would be Michael Cooper. He is the champion in a Mazda 3.
That's right. It seems like just yesterday we were negotiating with Derek Whitus and Glenn Long to buy those cars. I participated financially to help to get that deal going and help purchase the cars, got them in, sized them up. Then the guys ran with it down there at Hoover Shop, got that car prepared. No engine budget, hardly any budget at all. Bone stock car, probably the best deal in World Challenge because that's just the Grand Am car with slicks on it, and goes out and pretty much dominates championship, having come from that ladder system.
Yeah, and I think that's the big story about that whole thing there is that, you know, he's kind of done it the unconventional way. You know, he's not a guy who has put a lot of time into club racing or karting. From what I understand, Michael Cooper basically did a skippy school, jumped into MX5 Cup racing, and his, doesn't have a tremendous amount of racing under the belt, but the racing that he does is very efficient. Yeah, wouldn't you say, Peter?
No, I mean that's definitely not a traditional way of coming through. You know, usually they've started in karting or something, got a lot more seat time. So that's encouraging that you can go that way. Sounds pretty efficient.
And the thing to talk about now is where do you go from here? I'm sure he's going to get a prize. Right. You know, it's not published necessarily what the prize is for World Challenge, but there's a ladder system. He's got the whole story going for him. I know him personally. We've done a lot of iRacing together back over last winter. And he's a super nice kid. He's personable. He's got raw talent. He's right up there with anybody's data that I've worked with and the talent. I think at this point, it's going to be really good for him to maybe get that money and change environments and maybe move on to some teams that have been at the other levels and to try to gain some different kinds of experience. I think he's run with the same team for a number of years, same group of engineers. And Peter, how much does it cost to run a GT program in Grand Am?
I don't know. That's gotten so expensive. I mean, now with the Mazda going with the new GTX program, I don't really know, but it's still got to be $1.5 million budget. So it's probably $500 for a driver, I think. I mean,
yeah. So
there's much less expense for a GT car or a DP car these days. To be honest with you, they're all a Riley or Crawford or something chassis, and the consumables are pretty much the same.
So, this ladder step from him now, Errol, we're talking about this off camera. This ladder step from him is probably the most important one because it's the biggest dollar gap. The gap between MX5 Cup and World Challenge is perils between this gap between World Challenge and where he's going to go. But I have seen all those guys drive, Tom Long, the Chip Hers of the world, all the guys on Seal's team, in those GT cars, I've seen their data, watched them, and if they give Coop the chance in one of those GT cars, I think he'll shine.
I think so also. Our friend Peter Cunningham, he gets another title.
Yeah, we kind of knew that before we went to California, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, he needed to start. I talked to him the week before, and he says, I need to start. But stranger things have happened, and we started talking about ice racing or something. He's right. You never can count your chickens till they hatch. I remember one year one of those guys had won the championship. All they had to do was start, and they didn't know that they had a change. They're down there taking pictures with their victory cake, and the group was out on the track, and they had to chase them down and come from the back a half lap down to still get it. So anything can happen. But he was excited. Right. And I think these Ford guys complaining that he used his influence within the series to manipulate his car this year was a sour note. And I know.
So that's always the problem when you're an owner and actually compete in the series. You know, you're always going to have a couple of people who are going to rumble and say, oh, well, he had a hand in his own fate.
But on the insider,
I think that's something you can't help.
Yeah, but the insider part of that, if you're there racing and you're paying your entry fees, you're going to the meetings, you know that he has nothing to do with your class rules. He's removed himself from your class rules. He don't sit on the committee for your class rules. You have other competitors that are there that on the committee, but you don't have Peter. So if you're involved with it on an inside basis, it's hard to say that Bove or any of those guys are doing anything with the rules that would favor that car. If anything, Peter had to spend a shitload of money this year, excuse my language, to get his cars up to the speed of the other cars.
Honestly, if I saw any rules, discrepancy, is that the Kias had a big advantage to begin with, or whatever. So they finally got those dialed back. So I don't think it was an advantage Acura at all. No. So
and then they complain about the Camaro, but I'll challenge anybody in the field. I watch Andy Lee drive, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist, or maybe it just takes an accomplished driving instructor, a driver. You watch him drive, you watch two more cars go through the same turns, and the level of hustle is right up there at Peter's level. You take Peter, you take Andy Lee, and maybe a couple more guys like Aaron, and those are the guys that can actually hustle and drive the car and anything that they drive. And those other guys, with just observation from outside the track, they're a little lackluster, comparatively speaking.
And then, of course, in GT class, we have Johnny O'Connell, who pretty much already wrapped up the championship. But it looks like Andy Pilgrim was able to hustle up and take the second spot. So I know Cadillac has to really be happy.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the story of this whole deal was Lawson getting that ride this year, feeling his way out in that Porsche and slowly creeping his way back up into big bore cars. Yeah. And he did an outstanding job. It was a pleasure to watch him. But Johnny needed it, and I was so happy for him to get those wins. He announced our series for us back in 06 whenever I won the MX-5 Cup. I got to know him, and I know he's a favorite among the Cadillac guys. It was a popular win for sure.
Right, so, it was definitely a great World Challenge series this year. So
you know what? We're going to be looking forward to next year. What was weird before we go off the segment? What was weird to me this year was Mike Skeen. I think Mike Skeen is one of the most accomplished drivers in the field. He helps me immensely. I use his one-lap video tutorials in my driving coaching because he gets it done, and it's exactly how I want to teach my students. And I don't know if they got what the deal was with this Nissan and Corvette and bouncing back and forth, but I think when that guy gets pointed right, or if he gets a ride in a top-tier prepared car, not that he's not in it, but I mean a factory-back car is what I mean by that.
Right.
The guy can get it done. He's a young Andy Pilgrim. Let's put it that way.
Well,
I'd agree there. He's a driver.
Yeah, and Jim, I agree. I mean, I think from working at the data, I might know somebody that looks at that data that, they say the same thing. They're big Skeen fans. So, I mean, I think you're right there.
He's the most underrated, and he gets it done, man. He really does.
The last thing is, I guess, Kia finally showed some speed out there in B-Spec. So that was kind of interesting. The Hondas won, but the Kia was right there with the one Honda. So maybe there is some promise there.
Sounds good. All right, gentlemen, we're gonna run a little long on this. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the fact that we're walking into September, which is basically club championship season. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome to another episode of Racing No Filter. Joining me in sunny California, Bill Wood, and down in sunny Florida, Peter King.
We're going to take a look at some of the products HPD has created for the 2012 Honda Civic And specifically, we're going to show you how to install an adjustable sway bar.
Until then, folks out there, you take care.
Want to keep up with all the racing action at the track? Well, download the new GoRacingTV iPhone and Android app. And remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to the Insiders Report. So as we alluded to before the break, this is Club Racing Championship season. When we walk into September, NASA has their championships at Mid-Ohio, and SCCA has their championships up at Road America. So the first one is going to be NASA, and I'm gonna throw this right over at Peter, our SCCA expert. So Peter, I'm looking at some of the entry lists over at both of the different club organizations, and one thing that I noticed right away is the fact that NASA has some 3 pretty strong classes. It looks like their American Iron, their Spec Miata, and then their E30 classes are pretty potent. And when you look at the numbers of Spec Miata drivers compared to SCCA, it almost dwarfs it, almost twice the number. What do you gauge from what's happening here? Is it just a geographical situation? What do you think is happening with the difference in numbers?
Well, I think that, you bring up a really good point. We kind of touched on it last episode about the Spec Miata numbers. It was kind of surprising to us that our Spec Miata numbers were down for the race. And since the last show, we've kind of done a lot of research internally in the club and trying to figure that out. And, you get a bunch of different reasons. But like we touched on the last episode is that, these Spec Miata guys can race all year. They don't have to bring it,
Right.
So that's one of the dynamics. The other thing is the NASA Championships is a 3-day deal, and people have been begging for the runoffs to be a 3-day deal. Even though we're trying that new schedule that I don't know that I really like, for the runoffs, it's still if you're going to test, you're still there the whole week, which, I think there's some ways around that. And then the other thing in our internal research, it's just shown is, a lot of regional type club racers don't want to go to Road America and take on the big challenge. They're
big boys.
Well, take on the big boys is one, and then we tore up some cars up there too. That's a big fear when you go get in that race. They seem to like to load the junkyard up with old Miatas after any of those weekends, the sprints or the runoffs. And that's just the reality of it. So. NASA's done a good job on that Spec Miata stuff. I'm not pulling any punches there. I think that, this is their last year at Mid-Ohio, and they're going back to Miller again. So I think that's
that brings up a good point. That brings up a good point. So Jim, how much of this do you think is the fact that when they're at Mid-Ohio, their numbers at NASA seems to thrive, and then when they go back out west to Miller, it's a little challenging, especially for, the East Coast, West Coast situation.
Well, that's clearly a geographic deal. We'll get more West Coasters to that Miller race, but that's purely geographic on how many fewer East Coast guys will go to Miller. But let's not forget the 800-pound gorilla that's in this room, and that is when you say race with the big boys, we're all assuming, and we all do mean that competition on track. But racing with the big boys also includes the tech shed. Wow. And anyone who went to that race, it's a whole new level of post-session technical issues that you have that a guy that runs his own car with no crew doesn't want the hassle. Not that we need to do anything different in tech, but let's just talk about the stories that came out of last year. The Twitter and Facebook pictures was after session 1, and it's as far as you can see, Spec Miata's waiting in the tech line. Randoms from the back markers and all the front guys. The next group, it's flip-flop to the next. Now, you got guys that, had that experience. I got a half dozen people that I work with that just said, hey, it's not that much fun of a race to be there a whole week and then have the hassle when I'm there by myself or with my wife or with my son. Right. Nothing against anything. We have to do things in the SCCA the way we do them for compliance and to make sure we have a pure champion. But that's some of the things I'm hurting. That 800-pound gorilla is not just Jim Drago and these street cars or the 99s up front. It's also every other thing that has to happen for those few precious precious moments on the track. And
well, you know, and there's something I have to correct there. So we say, you know, run with the big boys. There's obviously big boys at NASA as well.
Right.
So, you know, you have big boys in different classes for both organizations. So to say to run with the big boys, I think is not putting it correctly. I would say that, you know, SCCA has been around a lot longer and has a little more history, so therefore people kind of look at it in a particular way. I mean, the competition at NASA is there.
I think you're.
It's more serious. It's more serious than that loose. It's more serious at SCCA, and especially in classes like Spec Racer Ford and Spec Miata,
right,
where we really want to make sure compliance is a big deal. Not that they don't in NASA, but I think among the competitors who race SCCA, they're more serious about how they want tech handled than the competitors. Forget the sanctioning bodies. Than the competitors who want to go and have a good time at a 3-day event at NASA. I'm sorry to step on you, Peter.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say that I think it's just a little bit deeper field in SCCA. That's all I was going to say. The two other points you made, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and be honest. You know, SCCA has completely missed the boat with, you know, American Iron. And, I mean, we're trying to fix that, I think, by slowing STO down for next year. I think that's going to help. Maybe we can get some crossover there. And the E30 thing is, you know, nobody ran those cars, and, you know, that's a good, inexpensive way to go. And I think they could go into STU now. I mean, that STO might be a little bit faster than E30, but, I mean, those are two markets that SCCA just flat-ass missed. And, you know, there hasn't been to start a new class in SCCA, you know, it doesn't go real easy.
Oh, no, we already have too many classes at SCCA.
No.
Yeah, and I don't know that they missed it. In all fairness, I mean, you would have had to have a tight-knit group in a very small area, and they wouldn't have had a place to race. So I think that you got to remember the beginnings of all of this had less to do with classes and cars and difference in philosophies.
Right.
And so people were willing to spend their money to go to one-car races for a long time with NASA because that's where they wanted to race. And so I don't know how you could have competed with that, because that one or two cars wasn't going to come SCCA racing. So there was no competition at the genesis of all of that. But the other thing is that we got a lot of classes. That makes our event a week or 7 days long in SCCA. Right. And there's nothing we can do to change that. But from where I'm sitting as a member, I like the American Iron races that they have. I like the performance touring to get the street guys over there. I like the high performance driving. But flip side of that is I can't imagine championships, without having a D Sports racer and a Formula Atlantic in it.
Right.
So, there's something for everyone. And I think long as both sides tries to, not to make this a segment about them too, but long as both sides plays to their strengths, a fan like me or someone who sells to all of those drivers my services, it seems to be working out great, especially with this work that you've done, Peter, and getting these showroom stock classes and STOs and STUs and all that stuff all organized and going.
I think in general the sport is better having both of them there because they basically offer something to everyone. Where SCCA might be lacking, NASA picks up, and when NASA might be lacking, SCCA picks up. So I think having both of them there and having the competition between the two actually makes the sport a lot better. That's my thoughts there. All right, gentlemen, let's go to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about what's going on with the second inaugural Baltimore Grand Prix. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Insiders Report. So in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the Baltimore Grand Prix. As you guys know, that was in one sense, it was a total fiasco last year with the organizers. I'm here in Baltimore, so I have kind of a ground level view of what has happened and what is going on this year. Last year the organizers were thoroughly unprepared, never gave a Grand Prix before, and it showed at the beginning of the event with the track not being set up and a whole host of other organizational problems. But ultimately, once the event got off the ground, it was a fantastic event. The fans came out. I think the fact that Baltimore does not have any racing in its heritage in this area of road racing to this level, definitely not a street circuit, really helped, and people came out because they just wanted to see what it was all about. I know, Peter, you've been living in Florida pretty much all your life, and you know how enthused people probably were for that first St. Pete Grand Prix.
Well, yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about that last year, and it was a big unknown if the people really would show up, but, they were very successful last year in getting, that first Baltimore. Even though it wasn't very organized, the people did show up, so I guess if you build it, they will come, if they're interested.
Yeah, right. And this year, they're definitely building it. Driving around the streets of Baltimore, the track is up already. It is started. The construction started a couple of weeks ago, and pretty much the track is constructed. Compared to last year, where they were literally constructing the track 2 days before the event, they were never going to be able to finish it in time, and it just ran into problems with the Friday practice. So they're a lot more organized. This is the third promoter that they have now. The first promoter that gave the event last year basically owed the city and the state a lot of money, so the city got rid of them, went to a bidding process, tried to find another promoter. They picked another promoter, ended up getting rid of those guys because they didn't have their act together, and now we're back up to a third promoter, and this is Andretti Motorsports. They have experience putting on the St. Pete Grand Prix and other events, so they definitely seem to have their act together, and things seem to be going smoothly.
Yeah, cities learn that beware of the higher cost of the lower price. And with building a building or doing anything construction-wise that they would normally do, the low bid process works. But I think that when you have a specialty thing like this, the low bid process may not be the way to go. And I think the city got their hand slapped on that, and they're learning their way.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be covering it and putting up some video updates throughout the weekend next week, so you guys can stay tuned and see that. Now, Peter, I understand, I kind of look at you as our B-Spec kind of guru in a sense, because you've been involved in helping to make parity with that series and making the rules with SCCA. You sit on the competition racing board. But I hear some grumbling that a couple of manufacturers may want to have another test to deal with parity issues.
Well, I think they all want to, with the Chevrolet Sonic coming on board, and Kia has not been happy all year long, and Fiat was a little upset at one point or whatever. So it just needs to have one big, another big test. So that is in the works. We're thinking that it'll be in October or early November, and we're just trying to pick a venue. And I think all the manufacturers would be there. Grand Am would be there. World Challenge, of course, and then the Canadian Tire Car guys would also come down. So we're just trying to figure a central location where everybody can get, a representative there, and we'll do the same kind of craziness we did at the first test, bring their hot shoe. And
so is it going to be, is it going to be open to builders like Jim Daniels so he can get some good tech information?
The funny thing is I banned Jim Daniels the last time. We didn't want him even on the property, so I'm sure that would continue.
I was banned. It's funny. I'm used in every way possible to make things happen, but then when it gets down to the meat and juice, I'm omitted. It's a strange thing.
That's exactly right. Well, imagine that. So, I don't know who else I'll ban this time, but we'll see. Now, honestly, everybody's really working very well together. I mean, they had I think Jim, we spoke about that before as well, that they had that manufacturers meeting in Ohio, and, there was a lot of constructive ideas that came out of that. I mean, the biggest problem we've had is that this has just been a slow rollout. Everybody's got the enthusiasm. I think cars are being built now, at the club level. And I think if we could get out the message that, there is parity and that they're so inexpensive on consumables, then it would be, a very, viable racing deal. But
that's the thing. I think, Jim, you were telling us some statistics, possibly off camera last week, in reference to the fact that how how inexpensive the consumables are on those B-Specs.
Hey, you look at Connor Ford. They put the Honda helped him with that car for the Miller race, and then helped him with that car for this race here, the last one they had at Sonoma, and same car that's been built since 2010, same package, same everything with the rules since all the way back when then, and he's running it. I think he bought a set or two of tires and no fuel or anything else.
So yeah, the cars are, I think that the cars are coming. It seems like at the club level, people are starting to get a hold of the class and look at it as a real viable option. And so, we're kind of hopeful that car counts come up, and maybe after this test, a few more cars.
Well, and that's one thing. I think that they didn't have a club racing home this year. Being part of SSC, where next year it'll definitely be its own B-Spec class, right. And I mean, I think that hurt us as well. So, I know the Canadian guys are full on, and I think as long as Grand Am still has 5 manufacturers, they're going to do it again. And, I think World Challenge is really going to try and push to have a successful deal.
Sounds good. All right, gentlemen, that's going to kind of roll out and end our show this go-around. I want to thank you guys for, as usual, being a part of this Insider Show. Peter, any last thoughts as you typically hijack the show?
No,
are we good this
all I got to say, Tucker, is I'm worn out because all I've been doing is working in my garage on my race car. And as a crip, being your own mechanic, it isn't always good. So then
trying to get it ready for the runoffs.
Yeah, so we were doing final. Irish Mike was putting the cylinder head on the motor today, and then found out I had 2 exhaust cams. So I guess I made a bad order. So now we're overnighting an intake cam in. So those things come up, and I was trying to test at Sebring on Friday, but I don't know that that's going to happen now. We'll see. With the rain and everything, I don't know. But anyway, right. Keep moving forward.
Gotcha. Anything happening with you this weekend or this week, Jim?
Well, on Thursday, I'm going to get some new titanium wire put in my chest plate, and then maybe one more month of recovery after that, and I'm ready to grab my helmet.
Excellent.
Gotcha. So you're going to be walking around looking like Iron Man.
Yeah, I'm already setting off all of the security gates at the airport, so what's a little more titanium?
I've been doing that for years.
There you go.
So.
All right, fellas, thanks again. All right, folks out there, remember, as usual, you can tune in to Go Racing TV every week for all your club racing needs, as we have racing from all your favorite series. As usual, thank you, and until next time, you take care.